Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Look, if this happens, I acknowledge XRP is probably going way higher in price than what I've been thinking is most probable. And then, mind you, most of the reputable chart analysts that I follow will say, Bitcoin, it's probably going to about $150,000 peak, which of course would be briefly lived, a $150,000 peak this market cycle. I see ranges typically somewhere between 120 toward maybe $180,000. Those are the ones that aren't wacky. You're talking just a 2 to 3-fold increase from the current price level, and nobody knows for sure, but that doesn't seem that wild. But on the upper end, even some of the most reputable analysts out there will say, okay, if you want to get my most fringe case of how high Bitcoin is going to go, here it is. And now, the reason I'm starting my video off talking about this is because if those fringe cases are correct, then I think that would make XRP worth way more than I've been supposing it might go this particular market cycle. And why? Well, because if Bitcoin hits the upper limits of some of the expectations of some of the analysts out there who are broadly considered to be among the most reputable, there's going to be that much more money flowing through the entire crypto space. If that actually happens, my gosh, because look, money starts with Bitcoin, broadly speaking, and then it flows through, people take profits, and then it flows into other large caps like ETH, XRP, so on and so forth. Mid-cap coins, small-cap coins, rinse and repeat. That's pretty much how it goes here. But here's a headline on the screen. Fundstrat's Tom Lee backs $280,000 Bitcoin price forecast despite volatility concerns. So I'll just say, and look, I'm not expecting, to be honest, I'm not saying it's impossible. Crazy stuff happens in cryptos, and if markets want to go, okay, sometimes stuff like that happens. I'm not saying I'm counting on this, but even I will acknowledge if this happens, which I'm not sold on, but if this happens, then my God, the amount of money that will flow into XRP, I acknowledge that it would be, in all likelihood, far beyond my expectations in terms of what I think is most probable. But before going any further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 7:27 p.m. on Thursday. What the hell day is it? Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. And by the way, that's Central Time, which is my time zone here in the good old United States. XRP is just a little shy of 60 cents. Bitcoin at 60,746 bucks. Crypto Fear and Greed Index 34 out of 100. So the market is still in fear. Haven't gone back to greed or extreme greed ever since the market collapsed. Not literally, but since we had that precipitous drop on, I believe it was August 5th. But even so, there are lots of expectations from all sorts of reputable analysts that I'm not saying that I think that this is probable. I'm just saying technically, okay, it's possible, and there are a lot of people who are considered reputable that think it could happen. Bitcoin going to $280,000. And mind you, for instance, and there are lots of other analysts that are saying, okay, if there's that much more money injected into the space, fine. Like, for instance, Credible Crypto, he even said, and this is not his base case, he thinks Bitcoin goes to peak at about $150,000, but he even acknowledged that for him, his best speculation as far as the upper limit, even Credible Crypto said maybe Bitcoin could hit $300,000 this market cycle. He does not think that's the most probable outcome, but here you have Tom Lee, who is very famous in the world of crypto. He's regularly on CNBC. In fact, here's an article from CNBC from July 1st. Tom Lee stands by $150,000 Bitcoin forecast. And that article is derived from this video clip, this YouTube clip that's on your screen right now, from CNBC. That's Tom Lee right there. He's regularly on CNBC. And, he's not always right. Of course, nobody's always right. But he's broadly been right about what's going to happen in terms of macro trends as it pertains to investing over the last couple of years. He's had some serious hits, and he stands by this prediction that he's had that Bitcoin's probably going to about $150,000. And he was talking about that this clip, it's from July 1st of this year. But this brand new headline from the Crypto Basic says, Fundstrat's Tom Lee backs $280,000 Bitcoin price forecast. And so that would be more on the edge. So I don't need to read the whole article, but he was sharing perspective from another account called Micro to Macro, whose high target for Bitcoin would be $280,000. So that would be more on the fringe. So that'd be on the higher side. It doesn't mean that's actually going to hit, but he reposted that and wrote hashtag Bitcoin pointing directly at it. And it's pretty clear that he thinks that that's possible, which is why I started the video by saying, if this actually happens, the amount of money that's going to flow into XRP will be absolutely insane. You want to see this. I don't care if you don't like Bitcoin, if you think it's ridiculous, if you don't hold it, it doesn't matter. You should want to see that much money flow into to Bitcoin, rather, because then you understand eventually a certain portion of that is going to flow into XRP and everything else in the space as people pull profits and choose to reinvest and keep playing within this casino. That's the point. And by the way, I want to mention this too, and I find this highly fascinating. He said something in this video clip from July 1st, and I actually remember hearing this at the time. I don't remember if I mentioned it on my channel at the time, but it's genuinely fascinating. And this explains perfectly why when it comes to investing, I invest in stuff, and then I hold. After that, I do nothing. Nothing. Eventually, fine. Yes, I'll sell when I'm sufficiently enticed if it becomes an outsized portion of my net worth. Okay, fine. But I don't try and get in and out of positions. I don't freak out if time passes and stuff isn't doing quite what I want, even if multiple years pass. And the truth of the matter is, even though Bitcoin's been trending upwards incredibly for the last decade and a half, it turns out that most of what it is to be in Bitcoin isn't looking that hot. As Tom Lee highlighted in his video, he said, and this is fascinating, listen to this. He says, if you take out the 10 best days in terms of Bitcoin price action, if you take out the 10 best days in any given year, Bitcoin actually has negative returns. Now, that isn't scary or it's not something bad about Bitcoin. The same concept is true in the S&P 500 when it comes to investing in stocks. Most of the incredible action that results in, if you just hold an ETF that tracks the S&P 500, if you hold that for a decade, 7 to 10 years, whatever it is, the reason that it tends to double is because in that time period, 7 to 10 years, is because you have incredible days like that. Most of what it is to be invested is not that exciting. It's a lot of sideways and downward price action that tests the people that can't stop staring at price, and they're fearful, right? Now, I stare at price and I'm not fearful because I understand this stuff, and so I don't let it emotionally bother me. But again, if you take out the 10 best days of investing, you've got negative returns in Bitcoin. The same concept applies to XRP and everything else. The point is, the days that are good are few and far between, which is why I frequently state, either you have exposure when something runs or you do not. This is why so many people, they destroy themselves when it comes to investing. Doing nothing after you buy something is harder than it sounds. I don't have trouble with it because I look at data and then I understand, since I don't know for sure what's going to happen price-wise, I just win if I don't do stuff over a longer period of time. I beat everybody if I just do that. Because I'm not going to assume that I'm smarter than the collective wisdom of the market, which is to say, all the humans that are investing in the market. If they're investing in such a way that XRP has been in the top 10 coins by market cap for over a decade, maybe we should listen to those people. Because that's the collective wisdom and beliefs, which is what matters, of the investors the world over. Maybe that matters. And to think that I know better than the rest of the planet as far as when to get in and out of any position, no. And I absolutely, I'm not even going to try and play that game. I understand there's a small percentage of traders that can do that. That's highly stressful. Even if you're right 65% of the time, there's a lot of time that you're not going to be right. And then to what degree are you earning? To me, it's not worth it. The way to win in investing is to buy stuff and just hold. That's why I continue to hold XRP. I do believe that at some point it's going to melt faces again. It's just, I couldn't foresee the SEC nonsense. And then the fact that, it had an 80,000% run. Maybe it needed more than a couple years to cool off. That's a fair point. Some analysts think that's a factor as well. Okay. I don't know for sure, but that seems pretty reasonable here. But yes, at this point, with how long it's consolidated, it's got the legal clarity, we don't have that cloud hanging over us. If this thing's going to run, And if that much money actually goes into Bitcoin, wow, it'll be pretty wild here. There's also this post from chart analyst Blunts. He says, I think this 2-week Bitcoin chop solidation starting to look close to ending. Bears had their chance, but we're tapping a resistance too many times now. I think breakup is near. And so he thinks, sooner than later anyway, we're actually finally going to see a continuation to the upside that's notable for Bitcoin. And I keep seeing this, like, even if it's not literally today, tomorrow, next week, or even a few weeks from now, whatever. The point is, eventually you're going to look over a 10-year chart, you're going to zoom out and be like, oh yeah, that was like no time at all, even if it feels like a lot to you right now. But I keep seeing all sorts of analysts saying, yeah, it's not going to stay here much longer, this chop solidation here. Here's a post from Mustache, chart analyst. He says, hashtag altcoins. I think it's time to send Total 2 back above a $1 trillion market cap. And Total 2, of course, is the entire, it's the market cap for the entire crypto asset class, except for Bitcoin. And at the time he posted this, you could see it was somewhere around $900 billion. He's like, yeah, probably time to see a continuation of the upside. This is the type of expectation that I continue to see. And there's other reason here. I wanted to highlight this as well. Here's a post from chart analyst Willy Woo. I certainly don't agree with him on everything, but I'd like to share diverse opinions. And in this case, I think he's pretty reasonable thought process. But he's one of the most well-known chart analysts in all of crypto. 1.1 million followers. Yeah, that's pretty rare. He's been around basically since the beginning. And so here's what Willy Woo had to say about Bitcoin, which, again, I understand. Maybe you're like me and you're way more interested in XRP or the rest of your altcoins. Totally reasonable. I'm with you, actually. You should still care about this. We need Bitcoin to do well. The more money flows into Bitcoin, the more money flows to the rest of the space. That's how it has been historically speaking. I see no reason that should be any different at this particular juncture in time. And so here's what he wrote. I'll make this, he's got a few screen grabs. I'll make them full screen as I go through this. And if you want to look at them longer, just hit pause on the video. So here's what he says. Here's the chart I like best to set the scene. Less inventory equals bullish. And the chart on your screen, of course, titled here, Bitcoin Inventory on Exchanges. And then he says, until the start of August, we've been in a bearish stance with an influx of 100,000 coins. Germany, Mt. Gox, Department of Justice, while speculation has been rife, creating more paper BTC. So he's talking, of course, about derivatives in that case. And I covered at the time, I'm sure most of you are aware, even if just tangentially, there was quote-unquote dumping of Bitcoin because of the government of Germany, Department of Justice, certain coins that had been acquired through, acquisition just from criminals, so on and so forth, and then the whole Mt. Gox thing. I don't want to go further into it for the purposes of this video. I covered it as they were, the stores are making headlines. But he's saying, okay, so there was an influx of some coins. Here are a few reasons. Okay. Paper Bitcoin. Okay. And then he says, the price crash during the start of August flushed out much of the paper with a nice round of liquidations. Open interest got wiped. That's a healthy reset of open value, the paper bets. It's really hard for Bitcoin to climb when there's overheated speculation in the market. And then he says this mid-June assessment is still in play. And the mid-June assessment is from June 13th. He says, Bitcoin price action will get boring as F. The trading casino will go away, then prices will pump. And so he's saying you need some of the froth here effectively to cease to exist. You need for the market to get more boring. And indeed, that has been what's happening. And so if you're listening right now, as this is a new or newish video, kudos to you for paying attention, because most people that were paying attention as things were heating up earlier in the year, they're gone. Now, we haven't had a true euphoric move to the upside. It doesn't look like this market's done. I certainly don't think so. So I think they're all going to come back, and it's fine if they're not interested in the interim. That's fine. But kudos to you listening for paying attention right now. I think it would be beneficial for more people to have a more consistent interest, but it's okay. Not everybody has that, and so if it's not genuine, it's not genuine. But he's just saying here, let things calm down a little bit before they can heat back up. And you do see those patterns in human behavior in markets again and again and again. So this makes sense. He says, again, Bitcoin price action needs to get really boring. I feel like we are 66% the way there. Much of the speculation is left. We still need more of the spot Bitcoin to be absorbed. Overall, from a demand-supply standpoint, it's been a recovery from short-term bearish to delicately neutral. But over the longer term, the good news is we aren't in a bear market, just a very long consolidation. And he shared this chart. Bitcoin risk signal. Yeah, and so I certainly still believe that we're in a bull market. It's my humble opinion. And it's just, there's so many reasons that you could cite to justify such a position, not the least of which is the fact that you don't end a freaking bull run when the market's in fear. It ends as people are in euphoria. And so people were a lot more excited, greed, and there are a few points where there's even extreme greed earlier in the year. But you know, it didn't precipitously go back down to fear. You know, we've just been consolidating. Yeah, and now fine, at this moment we're in fear. But I'm just saying, in terms of sentiment in the market, this is not what it normally looks like when the crypto market hits a peak cyclically. So, not that that's nothing's the end all be all, but you put everything together, it's just like you got to come to your own conclusion. What do you think is most probable? Even though, admittedly, I don't know. None of us know for sure. Well, I would bet on a continuation to the upside, and there are a lot of reasons. So I do buy that this makes sense. So if this is indeed the case, and if Bitcoin actually is going to hit those levels, my God, I mean, what would that even mean? Because look, if you're talking about Bitcoin hitting $150,000, then when people talk about XRP, this market cycle peaking at 8 or 10 or 12 bucks, I sit there thinking, okay, that doesn't sound crazy. But what if it actually does go to almost 300,000 freaking dollars, which again is not something that I think is the most probable, not at all. But what if it did? Well, wouldn't it suddenly start to be more reasonable to suppose that if that happens, big if, but if it happens, XRP goes to something more like 25 or 30 bucks if that's actually going to happen? Especially given how long it's consolidated here. And we can see that directionally it's starting to go the way that we want it to go. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it doesn't sound crazy if Bitcoin's going to hit those types of levels. The idea of that happening increases substantially if so. So we're going to find out together, but this is a very exciting time to be an XRP holder. I'll just say that. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.